All right, let's.
Yes, take two.
Meeting call order, take two. Let's start the call again.
Okay. Amber Greaves. Here. Christy Verbeck. Here. Gordon Sims. Here. Joanne Manieri. Absent. Kara Noisy. Here. Michael McDonald. Here. Rita Trainer. Present. Todd Gleason. Here. And then we have a new member. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Dan Weber. Yeah, I think I've at least said hi to everyone here once or twice before, but I'm still working on everyone's names. Nice to see everyone again. Yeah.
Good to have you on the
Nice to have you here.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So we will provide you our biographies. Tell us a bit what you do, what area of town you live in.
Yeah, I live in Rock Creek South. I have lived there for the last 5 years with my wife. We have 2 daughters. We live right on Coyote Ridge open space. So spent a lot of time out there and the other town Superior open spaces and trails and everything. And for work, I'm an electrical engineer, work over in Lafayette.
Good.
Thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
In place
Here,
of Mike.
this makes you
Oh, yeah.
extra.
Oh, official. It is official. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yay. And then we have Stephanie Miller in place of Mike Foster today.
Yeah,
Good to
thank
see you back.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah. Good to be here.
And then
You
Leslie's
just can't get
online.
rid of us.
Leslie's on my families.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds very nice.
Any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Okay. Any discussion? None. Those in favor? Okay. Done. I have no idea whether you can see if there are people signed in for public comment. There are none.
There's no one on. No one on.
No, there are not. Okay, we will bypass public comment. So how about town and staff? Oh, is Leslie online with us?
She's online.
She is.
Oh, okay. Town staff, council updates. Who wants to?
Maybe you could have Leslie start first.
Sure.
Sure. I don't have too many updates. I'm moving forward with the open space master plan. We haven't looked at that in several months as a committee. I hope to have a draft to send out to everybody between this meeting and the September meeting. I know that we have a full agenda in September, so we might push the approval of that or the recommendation for approval of that to the October meeting. But it's getting very close. Just a few items that need some tidying up. So that's good news. Wanted to just mention that the budget process has begun, and initial review of the budget, this is prior to any council input, still has all your initial recommendations in there, so that's good. That includes another full-time ranger. It includes the survey and design for the miners industrial mine trail. It includes about $90K in implementation dollars for things that have been recommended through the various master plans and the open space plan and our trail plan, all those. But that also includes, that 90 includes 15K for the Trail F feasibility study. So that's all good news. Again, this is just preliminary. It has a lot of review yet to go. But I wanted to give you that update. Also that we're working with Mile High Flood District on projects for next year, actually for 27 and 28. And they are looking at ponds, and I know ponds aren't necessarily specific to the Open Space Committee, but the pond that they are looking at is that larger pond in the community park open space. So they call it the Fleur Pond. It really is just cattails to the naked eye right now, although there is water flowing in there. They are looking at mitigating some of the cattails to allow for better water flow from the inlets to the outlets. And then they're also going to be doing some surveying points. So they'll have to go into the middle or various sections of that pond to determine how deep the actual pond and the water level is. So that project is scheduled to happen this fall. They were going to do it in the spring, but when they did their bird study, there was just a lot of the red-winged blackbirds nesting there. So they're looking at starting that this fall. It's going to be a big project just because that pond is so big. And we've asked them to come up with a plan for disposal of the material that they take out. Their work on the 88th Street pond took longer than we would have liked, and that material sits on the banks to dry out. So we want to see if they can find a quicker path to removal of that sediment, but wanted to let you know that's coming. And then they're also going to do an evaluation of, now that we have acquired that parcel, that Colson parcel, they're going to do an evaluation of that segment of Rock Creek to see if there's any hazards or if they would recommend any work in that area.
Question, Leslie, when the pond, can she hear me?
I think so.
No,
It's just a weird
echoing
echo on my
because it's
laptop.
on her speaker.
Oh, when the pond is finished, will that include standing water as on a regular basis, or is it just going to be a dry channel?
It won't be a dry channel. It's not a dry channel now, but it won't necessarily be open water either. So they're not going in and removing all the cattails. They're probably going to focus their work on the inlets and the outlets. And as long as the water is flowing from point A to point B in an acceptable manner, they're not going to go into the middle of the pond and do any significant removal.
I see. Thank you.
I hope that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Anything else?
That's all I had on my list unless folks have questions.
Okay. Hope you had a good vacation.
I did, thank you.
Thank you. Ari?
I just have a few. Boulder County Youth Corps is all done for the season, and they completed, I think, all of their projects this summer. It's just one extra thing, but they finished everything. They did a great job this season. Connor did a great job in helping manage that group as well. So he was able to just, do the day-to-day check-ins and everything, and then we would go on site to make sure that all the projects were completed to, up to standard. And yeah, they did a great job. They had their celebration last week at Boulder Reservoir. They had their pool day here, and it was a great team. It was really, really good. Some of the things, if you guys want to hear like a quick wrap up of their season, I'll just read these off as some bullet points here. So they did weeding operations across 6 different parks, and they were able to remove about 200 30-gallon bags of weeds. This helps prevent the spread of invasive species and helps with the native pollinators, all of that, and reducing fire fuels. 4,200 feet of degrading and hazardous barbed wire fence at Coyote Ridge was removed. That also helps improve the space for the wildlife and in future projects that we have, planned for that space. They made repairs and improvements to 2,400 feet of gravel trail in Autry Park and Community Park. Completed around 800 feet of prairie dog fencing in Coal Creek Crossing to slow down the expansion of the colony out there. Applied linseed oil to 2,600 feet of fence in Autry Park to protect the wood from rot and decay. So around like the bike park, the dog park area, the inside, since that's a new addition to there. And we try to do that every other year. Over 3 days, the team was able to remove about 200 pounds of trash that was in the exposed grazing areas where the goats were grazing, and then also along Coal Creek. We started around Town Hall and just kind of made our way, east and west of that. And then in the entire season, Boulder County Youth Corps spent almost 3,000 hours across 9 different parks and open space properties, making improvements during their time here. So they did a lot of.
How many folks were on that team? How many?
We have, there's 1 youth leader and 1 assistant youth leader, and then 10 core members. So that's a full team.
And they had their celebration, but does the town do something to recognize them as well?
Yeah, so what we do on their last full work day, they just work like a half day, and then we give them the pool day for like the second half. And they get like a pizza party and all that stuff. So they got to relax and have fun. And then their last day with the county, all the teams of Youth Corps, usually about 12 full teams, they have their celebration at Boulder Reservoir. So all the sponsors are invited to go, and they do a speech and all that stuff to thank them. And then they get awarded with like each group gets they have like an MVP for the group, so they honor those kids who are just like, they go above and beyond, and all of that. Yeah, so they do that every year, and they always look forward to the pools here because they get to just eat and swim. Yeah, it was great.
I was impressed with how nice a job they did on the fencing removal up
Yeah.
on that long stretch of barbed wire on Coyote Ridge. I assumed that was going to be all trampled, and it really still looks pretty good.
Yeah.
They did a nice job.
Yeah, they did a really good job, and they were able to cut it into like manageable sizes, and they were all picked up and everything. But a lot of it was like buried in the ground, so they had to be dug out and everything. So that one's a hard one. We had to delay that one 3 weeks because of the hot weather.
Yeah.
It was just really, really hot. So we tried to do it on a day where it was a little bit cooler for them since it's unexposed. But we got to that.
Yeah. Good.
It was good. That was that. And just so you're aware, Connor's season has been extended to end of December. So it's not end of October, which is what we originally thought, but he'll switch over to part-time, about 29 hours a week, and then going all the way till the end of December. So he's still there as a resource. If you're not able to reach me, you can contact him as well. And one last update is with Boulder County Fire Mitigation. We tried to do a project with them last season, but it didn't work out with funding and just the planning of things. So we have 1 week with them on beginning of October. I think it's the week of COSA, which is October 5th to the 8th. So 4 days. They have a team, which is Teens Inc., a group out of Netherlands, kind of like a youth corps team as well. So we'll have them for 1 week, and they'll do weeding mitigation out in the open spaces here. This is free for us. Yeah, so nothing out of pocket, and it's just a service that they do. They've worked with us with the Marshall Fire, with Allison in the past. So this is just something that they want to do just to help support Boulder County. So we just need to find some sites by that time to for them to do removal.
Nice.
That's it.
And they just cover our recommended list of invasive species and bad weeds and all that.
We just need to give them, tell them where to go and what to do. It's kind of like Boulder County is, like the youth corps, and they just do it. They come with their tools and everything like that.
Nice.
Is that a town of Superior list of weeds and species that are getting removed, or is that like state of Colorado list?
It's county.
County.
So we don't have like our own list. We follow the weed management and like recommendations of noxious weeds removal according to Boulder County. There is a Colorado one, like a state one that we follow, like the weed management. So it's just some of those weeds doesn't grow in our region.
Yeah.
So whatever is, if we're like list A, B, and C, we just removed all those. Yeah.
Thanks.
So do you need location recommendations, or is staff?
Staff
Will
was,
staff handle that?
yeah, staff was gonna handle it, but if there's an area that you think needs a lot of attention that we haven't touched this summer,
Okay.
more hands, then
I
let me
have
know.
nothing in mind, but
Yeah,
if,
October's a little late.
Lanterns, the east side
Yeah.
is one that's never been touched.
Lanterns.
Rita's backyard.
Well, yeah, well, actually, no, I'm on the other side.
How many bags have you
East
collected so far
Last
this
this year, the
season?
heat is,
It's hot.
it's gotten to me. My sister and I have not been out in August. We're planning on going out tomorrow, but
Okay. So if you have a recommendation, send it Pari's way. All right. Stephanie, anything from council?
Not really, I was just gonna mention that we're gonna start reviewing the budget soon. We've just got a doodle poll to figure out when we can try to herd the cats and get everybody together for that, but good to hear that you guys are already looking. Otherwise, no.
Okay. All righty, let's move on. Are the point strategies online?
Yes, I have Annie here and Joe.
Okay. You want to? Annie, can you hear
Hello,
us?
That's like a song, you know.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
we can't see
Yeah,
you.
the floor is yours. We
Awesome.
currently can't see you.
Okay. Let me see. Let me do a screen share, and hopefully you can see that at least.
I don't think
Charlotte's here.
we're not at the conference at all, are we? On the video.
So, Pari, it says that I'm not allowed to present right now.
You can as a panelist. It's a weird setup here. So if you're trying to share screens, let me see. One second.
It says the host isn't allowing multiple presenter sharing of this webinar.
Who's sharing this?
That's a different desktop there, not mine.
she says there's 2 laptops left.
You'll have to forgive us, Andy, we're not in our regular location, so we're working with a foreign AV system.
No problem at all. And Pari, I could send you an email real quick if that would help, and you could do it on your screen. I don't know.
Yeah, can you? No, it's weird. I'm not able to really share screen on mine.
Oh,
Okay.
wouldn't do any good if she did email.
This is a desktop that's here, and this is my separate one for Zoom.
Do you have access to that desktop?
I have it right here, so it just needs to, I would have to log in my email. It's a whole thing. This is like a desktop that's logged into like just a regular staff person, but not mine. I'm trying to think if there's a better way to do this. If you email it to me, I think I can figure out a way.
Okay, I will do that now, Pari.
We can
And then if you need to bump us in the agenda, we're glad to stay on as long as needed.
Okay.
Let's
Do
see.
you want to move on to the next thing while I do that?
She's trying to.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so this, C, trail ranking postponement to 2027. On our yearly plan, we would normally, about this time of year, or I think we moved it to this time of year, a consideration of reconsidering and re-ranking town trail projects. But in conversation with staff and Rita, we kind of came to the conclusion that we have a plethora of trail ranking and priority issues. So we prioritized and ranked trail projects that we wanted Boulder County participation in. That includes the Miners Trail, in which currently, at least in the budget proposal, there's money for design on that trail. We have our normal trail proposals that we ranked a year ago that included a trail on the east side of McCaslin to connect the Rock Creek Trail Network up to Coyote Ridge.
Yes.
And a couple of other trails. Those would be town-funded trails. We had that ranking from last year. And then when Coyote Ridge was new, we excluded Coyote Ridge trails from consideration. And now, as Annie and Joe will share with us, they have at least 28 recommendations for trail work, modifications, improvement, closures, et cetera, in Coyote Ridge. So we were presented with a dilemma of what are we doing if we rank the little town subset of recommendations, because it's all the same, for the most part, it's all the same pot of money, and maybe we need to step back and figure out how to balance Coyote Ridge with other town proposals. And since we've already got 2027 budget earmarked for some trail work, we thought maybe it made sense to just pause on considering the in-town trail proposals for ranking, in part because they may be in conflict with things we've got to do in Coyote Ridge, and in part because there's no additional money on the table for us to do any of that work in 2027. So is it all right? Are people comfortable with the notion of just kind of putting on hold our re-ranking?
And you know, the good thing about this is a topic that it falls in line with us checking off the fact that we are in line with our work plan.
Yeah.
That we said that we would discuss this, and we're going to discuss this again at the end of the fiscal year as we look at the next work plan. And we can even decide then if we want to look at it for that year.
Yeah, and we're going to, when we have that conversation, we're going to have to figure out how we want to balance Coyote Ridge development with, you know, the needs down in town. Since
And you know, the history of this in-town thing is we had this document that went ignored for years.
yes,
And so we didn't want to table it.
yeah,
We didn't want to lose it. So maybe that's just something that we can, you know, put as an appendix item to a greater trail.
yeah, and it may be that we take those town trails and we include the Coyote Ridge trails, and we decide, you know, what's affordable and what we can deal with in 2027 and 8, just so we're not spending all our resources in Coyote Ridge or spending all our resources in town. But so, are folks comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
We're making
Then
progress.
that's what we will do. Party, where are you at with?
You want one more agenda item?
Breaking into the
It was,
network.
it was there for a second.
Are you close? Oh,
And it's doing all this stuff. Okay. Okay. I think I'm good.
good job.
Okay, so make sure the slides are fine.
All right, are we good?
Yes.
Okay, Annie and Joe, we've got your presentation on screen. Oh,
And now them.
and actually, we can see you, or some of us can see you.
Yes, but then.
We'll
Okay.
take it.
Okay, floor is yours.
Awesome. So, as you've mentioned, we're going to present the results of the draft results of our review of the trails at Coyote Ridge and highlight some of our recommendations and the process we used to get there. Next slide. Okay, well, I believe, okay, so this is, all right, I'm gonna do it on my computer at the same time so I can see it. So we're going to review the planning process real briefly, show an overview of the maintenance recommendations on a map. We're gonna work through how we prioritized and ranked the projects. We're gonna summarize some of the key themes, and then we're gonna go through the top 5 priorities in a bit more detail, and then we have a bonus one we wanna make sure to mention. Next slide. So just as a review, we met with you all a month or 2 ago and talked about this, and we had alluded to Joe being out there and us starting to identify some of the existing conditions. We've also met with staff to get some of their knowledge about the field and attended the 4th of July event and got some community feedback that way. I believe the results of that community survey have been shared with you. Since then, we've also been meeting with staff to go over some of our recommendations and the priority criteria. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Next slide. Okay, so this is where we get into the good stuff. And I can't see anybody, so please just interrupt me if you have questions. But on this map, you're probably not going to be able to see all the detail. That's totally fine. What we were just trying to show here is the extent of the projects that we identified and ran through the process. The red-orange dots are ones we will not be talking about today, but are included in the draft plan. The yellow dots are the ones that have rose to priority 1 through 5, and we'll spend a little bit time talking about. Next slide. Okay, so we had something like almost 30 recommendations. And so just a laundry list of those isn't super helpful. So we wanted to identify a way to capture the importance of individual recommendations. So we came up with a few criteria, and we ranked each maintenance item against each criteria on a scale of 1 to 4. So we had that it's easy to implement or timely given other work being done. The second one is more visitor focused on it increases access, improves the visitor experience, and or safety. The next one is more natural resource based, and it addresses an existing concern, whether it be for plant, water, or wildlife. The fourth one is for trail durability, so that's the condition of the trail as it is now. And we wanted to have a reality check of the ability to implement long term. We recognize some of our recommendations might not have been feasible long term, but thought it was worth considering. So I gave you a matrix, and this will start making a lot more sense in a little bit, but maintenance number 18 was the highest, and it received a score of 19 out of 20. And the lowest ranking recommendation received an 8 out of 20. With no questions, let's move to the next slide. Okay. When we got done, we recognized that there were some recommendations that didn't have a high ranking, but that we felt were really important to move forward in a logical way. And so we've created some themes here. And in the final report, we identify which of these recommendations fits into these themes. But the first one was naming convention. There were just some cleanup action items around the naming of the trails. Those didn't rise to a high priority, but if you're making trail maps, you're definitely going to want to clean that up. So there's the naming convention one. There's a couple recommendations.
I think we're having, could you explain the the confusion with the name conventions or what you think we should consider further?
For sure. Yeah, so the naming convention is just like a theme of some of the recommendations that you'll see later on in the report that didn't rise to priority because they're not a natural resource concern. But they are timely, right? So they may not have ranked high in priority, but they make sense to do immediately just because of the other actions that will follow.
Is it because the names are too long?
No, because some of the trail, it's just a cleanup of the naming exercise, really. One trail accidentally used a social trail. I think it was maybe Prickly Pear, maybe. Use the lesser social trail, and we just recommend using the one where most people are going. So instead of designating the lesser used one, use the one that you meant to use. It's just at the scale it was being viewed at, it was just a small error.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, I hope that helped.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Yes, that was helpful.
There we go.
There we go. Now you have the full.
Okay. So again, the adaptive friendly updates, they didn't rise to the top in priority, but they're easy to implement. And by doing so, it would open up the Sunflower Spur Trail and the Prairie Dog Trail to adaptive users. So we felt like, even though it didn't rank high, they're really easy items and it would make a big impact. So we categorized that theme. And then there's some designation of social trails. So again, they may not have ranked high, but if you're creating maps of your designated trail system and they are identified for designation, naming them and including them in your final map would be timely and important. So does that kind of make sense about how those themes rose to the top regardless of their prioritization ranking?
Yep.
Okay. So next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and he's going to dive into more details for the top 5 ranking recommendations.
Yeah, perfect. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, great. Yeah, so if you want to go to the next slide there, Pari. The first...
I can hear you now.
I think I'm seeing what you're seeing, which is
Oh, there you are.
it might be stuck.
We hear you now.
Can hear you now.
But you're right, the slide looks
Same
stuck.
slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the slide labeled draft priority number 1.
No, it's not there.
You're unable to advance your slide, Joe?
It's not us sharing. I think it's Pari,
Yeah, parties.
Not this time.
or it's the desktop.
Because when you were presenting, it did show Annie, so I think you can.
Oh, it is yours now, Annie?
You try it.
But I can try.
There.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah, that's not me.
Okay, so it is me. Never mind.
Technology.
Yeah.
All right.
Before I turn it over, Joe, I just want to note that we're saying it's draft because these haven't been reviewed. The top 5 priorities haven't been reviewed by staff yet.
Yeah, so we had a really productive meeting with the subcommittee last week, 2 weeks ago, and that was really helpful in filling out the plan as we have it and getting the subcommittee's local knowledge and the putting our heads together to start understanding this. But then, of course, we do want to review before we call it a final plan. So priority number 1, this is the one that got the highest score from Annie's metrics there. And this is the Barn Swallow Trail. It's the one that pretty much subsects the open space there. It goes from, remind me the name of that old settling pond.
I don't know that it has a name.
It's just that
The
retention.
settling pond.
It's just called the settling retention pond or something.
The bladder.
Yeah, it's
Somebody
called
said-
the bladder. The bladder.
The bladder, that's what, yes. So going from there up to the top of the ridge, it's a heavily traveled trail and it's fall line, which means that it's more likely to develop issues. Fall line being that it just goes straight up and down the hillside, and erosion doesn't, gravity doesn't prevent an opportunity for erosion, for water to leave the trail. It just continues there. So fall line trails are often more erosion prone, but this one, because it's heavily traveled and because it's one of the more eroded trails on the open space, we recommend addressing that. It shouldn't be too big of a lift to do so. We think with a small excavator, a mini X that would be, 3 feet wide or so, we could grade it, cut in a drain along the side, and turn these ruts into one solid tread. Being a heavily traveled trail, it can be a wider tread, and that should be a good solution there.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
All right. Do you want to go to the next? Unless someone has a question on that one, we can go to the next.
Would that continue, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Would that continue up to the top of the ridge?
It does, yes. It goes all the way up to the top. One of the, there it is again. All right. One of the small naming convention changes we recommended was that the Barn Swallow Trail name apply all the way to the top of the ridge there, but that's a side thing.
Yes.
And we don't have any idea yet of cost, right? Or do you have an idea of the rough cost associated with the recommendations?
We have an idea of scale and we understand the general costs of these things, but we haven't put costs together yet for these maintenance items.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to go on to the next page. Number 2 here is an area that I'm sure you're all familiar with. This is the Pirate Park access area. And we've split it into 2 action items here. So maintenance number 1A and B is the right side of the map as you see it there. And that would be creating a lower angle trail that contours the hillside and creates access in a sustainable and enjoyable way that's not, limiting as far as people's fitness or anything like that. And it would also be removing, as it crosses that 1B point there, as you can see on the map, it'd be removing that fall line trail. So building that and then removing the worst option there.
How do you do that in a way that people aren't still tempted to use it?
That's a great question, and that's one of the things that guides a lot of what we recommend and what we end up not recommending. This spot here, the general approach we would say is the yellow line. We could build the yellow line first, provide a better alternative, and instead of immediately taking away, we are providing a new alternative. Once we build the yellow line, then people will find, oh, this is actually a nice, enjoyable way to access this. And once there's some time for them to change their habits, then closing the other one down would be the second step there.
So you guys obviously understand and have data on the psychology behind this.
And fencing. I'll add and fencing.
Right. In a place like this, just doing the positive reinforcement is hard, and
We talked
sometimes
about a barrier fence from here here
Oh, I see.
to try and keep people from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very high voltage.
Yeah.
But
and
I
then
will say-
additionally,
Oh, are you moving on to the next one?
well, so I was going to say, additionally, we'd be adding the new lower angle access and closing one of the two parallels that you can see on the map there. So we wouldn't be taking away the one that is more heavily traveled, as you'll see on the next page there.
So there'll still be a
Yeah.
steep trail.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
So you'll keep
Yeah.
the one on the left side, Joe, that's-
Close this one
Keep that.
and improve this one.
yeah,
Yeah. So
Yes.
maybe go to the next slide and you'll see that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the image there, you can see that's less traveled compared to what's showing now. That is the more heavily traveled one.
Yeah.
And our recommendation here is not to try and take this away, especially right out your neighborhood. People like to go the straight
Thank you.
way. And so there's little chance that we could make that go away, but it does need some improvements because it's a fall line trail that's widening and eroding. You can see that the orange soil down at the bottom is an alluvial deposit from what's eroding on the steeper section of the trail. So it needs improvement. Our recommendation is to implement some sort of stairs there. Exactly how that would look is part of what would come out in the final plan and in the costs, but some sort of steps there would allow people to continue without continuing to endorse this erosive trail.
And I will say that we consider they are two separate action items, and they both ranked high, so that came out really nicely as a packaged deal. Had it not, we maybe would have adjusted something because I think the success of all of these items are tied to the other items.
Yeah. We definitely would want to implement this one after the previous one is implemented so that there's the lower angle option that people can go off to when this is being updated. Yeah. If there's no questions, we can go to the next page. So number 4 here. This is the southeast corner of the open space. This area has a lot of very steep trail. It's fairly limiting as far as user access unless you're skilled or fit. Many people are probably cutting their loops short. It seems to be that instead of going all the way to the top and accessing the nice scenic trail across the top. And so a handful of improvements are suggested there to direct people, create a few lower angle alternatives and direct people to a more appropriate routing system. The following page has a map of it if you want
This
to move
is
on to that one.
The golf course fence line, this is the
So it's Kestrel.
the section that goes straight up along it. This is the really steep section here. Go ahead, Joe.
And the next slide has a map.
Yeah, and so the image that showed a very steep, that showed the section where it goes from being 10%, which is considered fairly steep trail, to over 15%, which is considered an advanced trail by most metrics. So map here, you can see a handful of items there. All of the ones that have the same number, 13, should be done as a package because they all work together to make this change effective. If we were to do some and not others, it would be pretty piecemeal. So we'd want to do all the number 13 recommendations at one time. But it seems that it would be a high priority for allowing access to the top of the ridge and fostering a more equitable
I'm not
use of this part of the property.
showing, because I thought the X's meant something that they were going to close or get rid of.
Yeah, so
But then how would you?
It does.
So
the yellow.
that first picture looked up the slope like this. So the proposal is to bring people traveling this path up here.
Oh, okay.
People traveling this path, this would be new,
And then come this way.
and come this way
Okay.
and close off this area, build this little loop so that we don't bring people right to this edge and, encourage them to go down that trail. So move this a little bit here. There is a prairie dog colony here.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah.
And Todd, do you mind, since you're helping translate for us, can you kind of show how Primrose remains the kind of more advanced approach, which is an experience that some people are
yes.
looking for? And then, thank you.
So
Go team.
going to the west from Kestrel, Primrose is kind of a parallel trail to some extent. You can pick it up at the bottom. It's one of the routes I use going up. But as you come to this point, this section of Primrose that I think Annie is referring to becomes quite steep.
Yeah, towards the top.
It's truly an advanced trail. There's not horrible erosion on it, but many bikers and most walkers would probably use this to come up to that point. But they're proposing leaving this for folks that walk that
It's great.
experience, either up or down.
It gets steep right where that bend is.
Yeah,
It gets steep in that last bit. So,
Fairly eroded right there. Is there?
And it muds out in
Pardon
the
me?
spring.
there's some erosion in that corner. How's that saying? Yeah.
Well, not the corner, but just above it, uphill.
Up in here,
Yeah,
At
that's
the very
already.
top, where at the top is.
there is a bit.
Yeah.
Was there?
Yeah.
There's not a plan or a proposal to do anything.
I
at all with that?
don't recall
We
that.
could probably look at that. Right at the top, Joe and Annie, I think is what Dan's referring to, right? As it connects from Primrose to the Prairie Dog Trail, right at the last several feet is where it gets a little chopped up and eroded. 'Cause that last
Yeah.
is the steepest, probably.
It definitely is, and it's just as it's, eroding through that, escarpment isn't the right word, but as it's eroding through that change in slope, it's eroding a little bit. But it's not enough that we thought it was a concern in the same way as the other issues that we're addressing here. So it could be that there's some small in place things that could be done, a few check steps or something, but it didn't rise to the top as far as our analysis of this area.
But I think as a package, we retain a challenging route to the ridgetop. We provide a beginner, intermediate friendly to the ridgetop. We utilize as much of the existing trails we can. We address a lot of erosion concerns. But it, again, has to go as a whole package, so.
Yeah. Next slide, if we're ready. Number 5 here. This is an interesting one, and the insight of our subcommittee was extremely helpful here. So this trail is sort of a desire line. It cuts off a loop to the north and back around. Most recreational users don't mind the extra distance that it would take, and it seemed a pretty strange route as far as user experience. People riding bikes or hiking would probably not choose to go this way. And then the insight, the secret knowledge we got from our subcommittee was that the school children walking to and from school travel this route to cut off the extra distance of going around the loop. And
Not
that,
just school children, middle school children.
yes, so that helped us to understand that recommending a closure is a futile practice in this place here. And so instead, we recommend some improvements to address the environmental and trail durability concerns of this area. The image on the right, you can see the trail crossing a drainage there that is some sort of wetland. There's cattails growing there. It was muddy even in July. So that area definitely needs improvement if a trail is going to stay there. And then additionally, right behind the perspective of this camera is an erosive slope where it's maybe 25 or 30 degrees and it's cutting into the soil there, and it's going to continue eroding as long as the trail is there. So our recommendations are a bridge over the wetland and then some sort of check steps built into that erosive slope. This one did become a pretty high priority because there's some environmental things here. Almost nowhere else on the open space is there a wetland to take into consideration, and there is right here. So we definitely want it to be one of the first things to be addressed. Any thoughts, questions?
No. Do you have a picture of the slope on the other side, Joe, in this one? If you don't, that's okay, but.
I do, not in front of me. Would you like?
That's okay. We don't need to. I just thought that would help people understand where the stairs would be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's directly behind the point of view from the picture on there.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. All right. And then our add-on item that isn't one of our high score maintenance items, but it is a timely item, would be the signage of the trail with the jump on it. It has a jump that has been mitigated, if you will, and then rebuilt a handful of times. It seems like there's a dedicated handful of people that will be rebuilding whatever they want in there, regardless of the efforts that, open space takes. And on its own, it may not be an issue as long as the users are aware of what's going on. So it can actually be a feature if we want to look at it that way, as long as we educate people using this area. So our recommendations are appropriate signage throughout, designating it as a downhill trail, sign at the top about the difficulty and the changing trail conditions, yield sign at the bottom, as well as a sign at the bottom indicating that it's a downhill trail only.
Where is that? Is that more toward the south pool? Like where's that right there?
If you, it's right in the center about, if you go towards Prickly Pear from Primrose Trail.
Oh, okay.
Down through that little gully.
This is my bad. I just assumed everybody would know. If you, Pari, can go back to that very first overview map, maybe somebody in the room could point it out better. Thank you, Pari. That one, if somebody could point it out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, you guys.
Prickly Pear starts at the top and it goes all the way where Dan's pointing, and it goes through that gully. That's where the picture is taken.
It tees into the same gully, but off this plateau.
Okay, thank you.
Primrose is on. Yep.
Thank you.
The proposal is for it to just be downhill bike only?
It's in a direction, and then they put signage to tell people that it's an advanced trail, and it may not be.
So no walkers or runners?
I don't think we're going to exclude.
Yeah.
I think we're just put signage up there, but I don't know. What were your thoughts, Joe?
So the main opportunities for conflict or for danger are mostly in user interactions there. So the top right image, you can see the jump, and then about 100 feet beyond that jump is the intersection with the Prickly Pear Trail. If someone were to be walking or riding up and be coming up and a rider coming down, they may not see each other. The walls are kind of high, and so there are chances for dangerous interactions there. Riders hitting each other or surprising, a hiker doesn't like to be surprised by a mountain bike zooming up in front of them around the corner. So the signage down at the bottom with the intersection with Prickly Pear, and then the signage at the top saying the important details about this trail.
So it's more to advertise the conditions, not to exclude any pedestrians or, right?
It's more to let people know what there is here. I mean, we want to designate it as a downhill mountain bike only. That's our recommendation. We're not going to police it, neither are you, I'd imagine. So it would be more, this is what this is. You shouldn't walk up it. And then if people walk up it, they know now.
And I think just
I missed number one.
Just to add to the comment, I think a lot of the feedback in the surveys from people was to keep it as much as it is as possible and just really let people know what to expect rather than us imagining some different, landscape.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Well, I guess for me, I'm a bit sensitive just because I used to be the runner. But I'm okay if things are designated certain things, but I'm wondering if there are any other trails that are perhaps designated no bikes. I mean, I don't know, just something to think about.
Yeah.
Or anything you put stuff.
Because if bikers are gonna say, I don't want a pedestrian coming at me, there are plenty of times as a runner, you're like, I don't want a bike coming at me. So, I don't know, a little bit of equity might be.
It's true.
Worth
The one consideration is that this is maybe the only trail where a speed differential is what would cause the danger. Speed differential and lack of sight lines.
Yeah.
And so this one being what it is, it would not make sense to be designated otherwise, but there's nowhere else on the property that presents the same potential for conflict. So yes, I like your idea of the equity of mountain bikers don't own everything, and that's one of the things I fight for every day in this job.
County, there are places that I don't feel comfortable even walking anymore because they have become bike trails.
Yeah. I was on one today. And
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess the what I see in that is that this is already a bike trail, and we don't want people to be surprised by that.
Yeah, that's
So-
fair. Absolutely.
But I think, Ari, the next slide is just questions and comments. So this was just a small piece of the overall report. We didn't, we dove into all the details with the trail subcommittee, but just wanted to highlight kind of the process and some of those that are rising to the top. But if there are questions or comments, we're glad to field those.
I'd be curious to know what the cost of some of these things are.
Yeah, it's probably incremental over a number of years.
Yeah, I had a question if the assumption was that this was hiring an external contractor to do all this trail work versus volunteer work or other options that have been discussed at all?
Yes, they have, and I don't know if a decision has really been made on it.
It depends. I mean, I know
Implementation, right?
Ari has told us that, if they get volunteers, for example, they can't operate power equipment, right?
Yes.
So if someone's got to run a machine up a hill to widen a trail, that by definition can't be done by a volunteer staff, right? So I think it's going to depend on, which kind of repair work is going on. But that's my understanding loosely, to that question. But if it's just hand tools or something, that might be appropriate for volunteers to get involved with that.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, I see a lot of opportunity that doesn't require machinery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Particularly for some of the erosion mitigations.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we would talk through later on once we have these ideas solidified and approved, right? And like, how do we fund them and how do we resource them? I think I would imagine that would be part of that discussion. But yeah, that is the idea, is where we can use volunteer work and that makes sense, that we could certainly do it. But if it's machines and power tools, then it's not going to be a volunteer type of effort.
Yeah.
So is the next step to look at the cost for each? Is that the next step? Assuming.
Annie, can you summarize next steps before you get to a final signed and sealed set of recommendations?
Yeah, and just to chime in, oftentimes when we're developing cost recommendations, we do recommend a labor source that goes along with that can guide you. Just given our experience, what's appropriate for, maybe a youth corps, which is a little bit more skilled than volunteers, or is it maybe a outside consultant or a contractor? So we're glad to add that recommendation as part of our next step of developing cost estimates. And we also will be developing a sign plan, so a recommendation of location for signs and the general content of the signs, whether it's like directional names or has a trail map is generally what we do. And all of those things will be done after we have an opportunity to review the prioritization with staff and get that finalized. So we're pretty close to having a final product, but meet with staff, get the recommendations finalized and the order of the prioritization finalized, develop cost estimates along with a suggested labor source and a sign plan.
Okay. Other questions or comments from the group?
One more. Sorry.
Go ahead.
All right. I guess sort of in my mind, something that maybe bubbles to the top that isn't as maybe on your short list that isn't a high priority thing because it's not as large, but I think there's a lot of places I can think of that could use some sort of like, let's say, spot mitigation for erosion, where it's just one grade reversal here or there at various points on the trail. And I'm wondering if that something along those lines where it's more small mitigations make sense to incorporate in the earlier plan rather than push down the list of priorities. Does that make sense? Like small maintenance items that might prevent larger erosion concerns in the future.
Yeah, and Leslie, you guys are looking at that ongoing, right? I mean, is that something?
Maintenance, yeah. Is Leslie still there?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I only have half my face, I'm not sure. Here I am. Anyway, yes, I mean, maintenance would be ongoing and maintenance recommendations, especially if any improvements would be important. I think one of the things that I learned from Joe and Annie is that in their review of these trails, even though there's quite a bit of elevation change, that the erosion was not as significant as you thought it would be. And that was really interesting, that for some reason the soil type or the condition of the trail was much better than you would typically see in a slope, in some of those significant slopes. So I think that's great news, and probably is why we don't have more maintenance considerations out there. But I think an ongoing maintenance plan would, dovetail very nicely into the prioritization of these trail improvements.
Yeah, if there's specific, and Dan just joined officially tonight, so he didn't get to be part of that review with the sub-team, but Dan is very intimately familiar with the area. If there's recommendations, Dan, I think you could kind of bring them forward, and if they're little spot improvements, I don't see that would be a big issue, kind of.
Yeah, I just don't know what
into it.
Yeah, how that fits in with everything.
Yeah. We just kind of looked at the social trails
Yeah.
and what was out there and then tried to prioritize.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense, like broad strokes. I was just thinking like each of these seems like a bigger item than a couple of smaller.
They have 30 in total. Some of them are those small kinds of projects that you're referring to.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. There should be an ongoing sort of maintenance, and if someone spots something, just like you do in the town of Superior, if you see something like, hey, you got to ask somebody to address it, So I think that's something we have to build into the plan, to have a maintenance routine or way to report items.
And does that responsibility then fall on the town staff, or how does that play out?
For maintenance?
Yeah.
Generally, it depends on the project size. So it depends if the project is really big, or we would have to contract someone out because we don't have the resources or the staffing hours to do it. But if it's something small, like last fall, we did like top dressing along like the homes, behind the homes at Coyote Ridge. So if it's like volunteer base, it just depends how big it is and like what equipment and resources we need.
Well, what I heard him also asking is what is the process? So if someone has feedback and, if he has feedback and wants to say, hey, there's 2 spots on Coyote Ridge that I think could turn into a worse, corrosive situation, who does he give it to? Does he bring it to us at the committee? Does he just email one of you or Leslie, or what's
Just
that?
like concerns?
Yeah, or just things that might be really easy to.
What do I do short of grabbing a shovel myself and going up?
Yeah.
I would think just bring it up to staff. I mean, it doesn't hurt to bring it up to OSAC as well, but bring it up to staff so it's on our radar so we know, and then we can go out and look at the area to see like how bad that spot is and what we can do to move forward with that.
My sense is that at some point we're going to wind up blending this set of recommendations for trail enhancements with all the other trails in town, and we'll probably have an annual conversation about
Maintenance changes, whatever.
changing priorities, ranking priorities, what gets done now. And part of it will be whether it's a costly repair or something that volunteers could do, et cetera.
You could even put a QR code or something on the signage that says if you have a question or a comment, go to this. And I know they do that around town in the parks where people can call in. I can't remember the name of the services. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's maybe something like that could work out there too. Somebody sees something and says, hey, could you address this?
So perhaps. So between the three of us that have a copy of their draft recommendations, we'll make sure you get one so you can see the full set.
I sent it.
Dan's got it now.
And that's true for anybody else that wants to see their full draft, unprioritized. But if you want to see that, I think we can, it's sendable, I guess, right? Okay. Okay, anything further on this? I think they're off. Are they? Did they sign out?
They're still there.
No,
Oh, okay.
we're here.
Okay. Annie, when might we expect a final product? A final set of recommendations, maybe I should say that.
Yes, I'm pulling up a timeline now. We have us coming back to you all at your, if your agenda will allow it, your October meeting. That will be kind of the final review of small things, but hopefully adopting the plan, if that's the appropriate next step. So, October.
Okay.
2 months.
All right.
Because I think September you have a special meeting, and then October yeah, like I said, it sounded like you had a full agenda, but if you can fit us in, then we'll present
Okay,
then.
we'll be in communication then about whether we do it October or November, depending on what the
Okay.
mood is.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Take care. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks.
They've done some nice work up to now. They did go out and do a 10-foot elevation change topographical map of Coyote Ridge, which is something we haven't had. And we're able to better plot some of the social trails that we don't have plotted now. So, and these naming conventions that you asked about, it was really a misunderstanding between our intent and their interpretation of where the name of a trail started and ended. And it's just because we didn't have the detailed map. We didn't. They're housekeeping things. Is how I do it.
Think of it, yeah.
That's phenomenal work for them and by you all.
Yeah, it's great work.
Exciting.
Okay.
Their presentation was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Nice. Okay, great.
Amber, you want to
Sure.
bring us up to date on?
Yeah, the Prairie
Prairie
Dog management plan outline, I sent this to all of you if you want to pull it up, but this is just a first stab at a management plan outline. This was really born out of the fact that the previous Town of Superior plan, which was done in 2005, is really obsolete at this point. The way that areas are described and where prairie dogs were and aren't now, the names of places, it's really dated. So, but also this is born out of the fact that there are some areas where there has been more dispersal, and whereas our focus has been on kind of those dogs, prairie dogs on private property, the Zaharias property, and what's the plan for that if that ever gets developed. That's kind of where our prairie dog playbook has been focused. So this would be a bigger plan, and really the intent would be to, proactively, well, I guess we're reacting in some ways, but to address, expansion or movement within the town, and just to give voice to all the considerations that would surround that. So, feel free to give me any feedback. I, included a background section just to kind of lead into the whole plan. We would have to clearly define what the goals of the plan are. I put an example in there. You have an overarching primary goal, but then some secondary goals. I think mapping is going to be one of the biggest ones, and of course this will go obsolete if it doesn't continue to happen. So mapping of superior parcels, and I do believe we have a vendor who, last I understood, would be able to help with this. So that would be, gathering data on occupied acreage, hopefully capturing any anecdotal changes that have been observed up until now, identifying areas for conservation and corridors that would be acceptable for dispersal. These are just some ideas I had. The old plan is very evaluative when it comes to the parcels. So, and a lot of those parcels are, like I said, are dated, but they in that plan described like the site characteristics and habitat evaluation. So, I mean, it's really something that you would hope that like a wildlife biologist would do, but if this is a plan we're putting together, I mean, we can be descriptive in the most scientific sense too. But the sites were also evaluative in that there were like areas named in the plan. Like, we think this should be a conservation area. We think this should be a prairie dog education area. We think this should be a no prairie dog area. That, if we do something like that, that's gonna take a lot of discussion, and I think in figuring out. So that's why I kind of include evaluative language question mark. Like, do we want our plan to be like that? Do we need to define that? That was just a question I had.
But then also just talking about how we collaborate with other governments, and there really is so much overlap with Boulder County in lots of areas in Superior, where the easements are, where we might have intergovernmental agreements. Like, for example, if we did ever translocate prairie dogs to that Harding-Listoka site, we would need to have an IGA in place with Boulder County, since there is easement and there's some sharing between the two jurisdictions. So also created sections delineating sort of planning for prairie dogs on public lands versus private property, and what are all the considerations there. What would be incentives for conserving prairie dogs? What would be mitigation strategies? If there's development happening, what are some agreements we might describe or want to see happen? And then I think a section on passive relocation strategies, because, you know, we talk about barriers, but there really are some kind of intricate details about that. And I think it might be helpful to have a section just detailing what some of those barriers could be, if, you know, just as a strategy. So I put that in there. A section on full translocation, and again, we have a lot of that already in the Prairie Dog Playbook that could just be carried over into this plan. And then a bigger section on conflict management. This would address, you know, just conflict, human-wildlife conflict, how we address that, and then what's permitted, what's required, what documentation is needed, what are the legal parameters around that, and how would we define noncompliance, enforcement, that type of thing. Because I don't know that that's really spelled out for people, and you know, we have evidence that, you know, in at least one instance that folks are taking that into their own hands, you know, potentially inhumanely. So I think we need to really lay that out. And then other areas I thought about were public health and safety. This would be putting out like actual factual information, you know, hopefully disseminating some misinformation by doing that too. And then any additional education and outreach. So those were kind of the big areas. I sent you kind of the table of contents from the old one, just so you could see like, yeah, we're really not, you know, following what the old plan did. But this will be a work in progress. I think we'll have to talk about, you know, okay, well, if we have an outline that we decide on, are we just gonna start putting content in there? And I'm happy to like chip away at it little by little. I think whatever data we would get from our vendor would be super helpful to start bringing in here. But yeah, just any questions you guys have, any thoughts?
I thought the outline was good. What vendor are you talking about?
We have someone helping right now with some passive relocation, and I'm thinking that Leslie will talk to this in the next agenda item, but someone who's helping with like the area along McCaslin and eventually keeping those dogs on that side of McCaslin. I think she's been chiming in on some other areas around town and providing some input and guidance too. So I think what I understood the last meeting was that she was going to maybe help with some mapping around the town too of colonies. So yeah.
I think it's a good idea, excuse me, a good idea, you put the goals up at the top, and the more you can kind of hammer those out, then that kind of sets the direction for what the rest of it really needs, and can you tie everything back in some way to the, whatever goals are selected.
Right.
And
yeah.
You know, that's an important place to start.
Yeah, and it might be more of a discussion item for us too moving forward. Like, okay, if this, you know, at a next meeting, for example, can we hash that out? Yeah.
Does this have a different function than the playbook? Or will the playbook contents be largely incorporated and the playbook retired?
That's a good question, because that was so specific to what we thought at the time was the last remaining colony on Town of Superior private property. And now we know, like, oh, you know, we have prairie dogs in other places now around Superior. So that was really, that playbook really was what happens if that parcel gets developed?
Okay.
Here's everything we've thought about to help that end well. So yes, I think a lot of the content that I had put in there could be backfilled into this, and maybe, yeah, I thought about that. Like, does that become a subsection of this? Because there is, I mean, under mapping, I mean, we could certainly identify that area and
Yes.
talk more specifically about it there, and then as well as in other places, like in the full translocation section, hey, what are the release sites? But I think that playbook alone is helpful for developers. Like, just to be like, here's a plan. Here's a plan for that. We've thought about all the pieces.
And you put that together, and it was incredible to see a developer actually take it
Yeah.
in its entirety and,
So is
So
it,
maybe it still needs to be separate, just for ease of use.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to throw a developer a master plan per se.
Right.
And reference a certain, I mean, I guess
so
you
is
could,
playbook
but-
specific to the Zaharias
Maybe
property?
we rename that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What would you like from the group?
Can we rename it or consider making it an appendix to the management plan?
Yeah, I thought about that too.
What'd you say?
It could be an appendix, but then how would we approach that with the developer? Would we say, here's the master
Refer them to
plan,
the appendix
read
of
the appendix?
management plan. I mean, I guess I was thinking of the comprehensive plan that the
Of
town
course,
had,
yeah.
and you always referred back to, I forget what the
Appendix D.
Yeah.
D. I was gonna say B or D, but yeah.
My only thought with that would be though, if it's viewed as an appendix, it's I feel like it holds a little more weight as its own thing.
I would agree with
We
you,
spent so
and I
much
would
time
say,
on this.
when it comes to the master plan that you're referencing, I always felt that way too when we were arguing for something that as a committee, we believed it was buried in an appendix, and it really,
Lost its weight.
well, it never had any value for important decisions.
Sure.
I would say if you look at this and have any questions or thoughts, feel free to send it my way. But I can start kind of working on. I mean, I could start with number one and start working on a background section, and then maybe at an upcoming meeting, I could come with some potential goals, because I do think we need to have consensus around that as a committee, and maybe that could be an item to discuss at an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
But I also don't have to start with background if there's something more pressing happening in the community. Just
Well, thinking about Gordon's comment, it does sound like coming to consensus on goals for the document and goals for prairie dog management
yeah.
is probably the place to start, because it'll shape
What you put in.
So
what's next.
So maybe I'll come next time with some thoughts on those goals and maybe some overarching, I don't want to say theoretical questions, but there are some questions that were coming up for me as I was outlining this. Like, well, what do we think about that? And then also, there's the what OSAC thinks about it. And then there's, what town staff needs to do, and kind of keeping it in that advisory role, but at the same time, like, this document that was there before was referred to. So to what extent would this sort of plan be like the playbook for town too? I guess would be my question. And I say
Yes, whether staff endorses a set of
exactly. Yeah.
guidelines.
Yeah.
Probably putting words in your mouth, Leslie. Probably want to wait and see which direction it goes and what they have to say as to whether staff wants to line up behind it or not.
And if it comes down to some of those evaluative questions, like, well, we think this should be a dispersal corridor that's allowed, or, you know, those are some of the nitty-gritty things that I think will come out eventually. But I'll come next time with some goals and maybe some questions
Okay.
to help guide us.
Great job, Amber.
Segueing to your topic, Leslie, you want to bring us up to date on prairie dog management?
I will.
Plan?
I will let you know what's new and what's going on. So I did just early this week receive the mapping results that Misty Drake was doing for us. She's our consultant. She has mapped all of the Colton Trailhead. She's mapped all the boroughs along McCaslin, all the boroughs in Town 15, all the boroughs in the Coal Creek Crossing open space, and she's mapped all the boroughs behind Sagamore, some of which are on county property and some of which are on town property, because the property line there is you can't see it. It's not on the ground. So it's a little harder to determine which of those belong to who. But she basically has mapped over 500 boroughs, which is an incredible amount of data. And I'm just starting to kind of shift through it. Not every borough is an active borough, and some of that is really hard to determine, but you know, I think there's some kind of you know, recommended formula for, you know, if you see this many boroughs, how many are active and how many aren't.
Yeah.
I also think that fluctuates throughout the year as the population fluctuates. So, but I'm trying to get that data in a place where it can be shared, and, you know, if this group would want Misty to come and present on that's a possibility. I don't know that it's necessary. I think you can look at points on a map and see where we're having you know, some expansions, how you know, what parts of open space are they in, and, you know, what does that mean to us as, you know, land managers and land stewards. So that's great information, because we really needed to have the map of the boroughs to understand what we're looking at. And it is, I mean, Amber's completely correct. Where they were in 2005 is not where they are now. It's completely different. And, you know, the properties are different and the situations are different. So there is a huge need to update both our data that we have, and then, you know, all the different areas that Amber has in this outline, I think, are areas that will really help guide both the recommendations from OSAC and the actions of the town. So that's the good news, is we have a starting point. We also were able to put out some educational material on prairie dogs through some social media blasts, and they're starting to build that page out a little bit more with more and more information on, you know, the just what are prairie dogs, what do they do, what's their nature. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and we actually received quite a bit of feedback from the community thanking us for that, and, you know, people who didn't know some things, or, you know, maybe had some of those misconceptions. So that, I think education is going to be something we really need to ramp up and continue to build on. You know, I've had residents both in Sagamore and in Coal Creek Crossing neighborhood ask if they could go into the open space to mitigate the prairie dogs. And I think it's reflective of the fear behind what the prairie dogs, what is their risk, and why are people why do we need to mitigate them? When do we need to mitigate them? What is the real risk factors there? And trying to educate people more and more about those things. So, we also have the responsibility of the homeowners who, are worried about property damage, exposure to, either their pets or their family members. And I think, we'll have to implement some management methods at some point in time, whether that's the passive relocation, whether that's trapping and relocating, or whether, we actually need to get into lethal mitigation, which of course is always our last choice.
Does mapping the boroughs give, and the density of them, give you any kind of proxy for estimating the actual population? And, because at some point, I would imagine, Leslie, if one of the main concerns is the population density close in gets too high, then that's when we have an issue on our hands in terms of relocation and things like that. Can you do any predictions based on what the mapping showed, or is it not really able to do that?
I don't have the background to really speak on that intelligently, but that is a question that I will pose to the consultant.
And that's in our prairie dog playbook, in the fall is generally the best time if you're doing full relocation because their population count is lower. When they have those pups, in the spring, there's many factors that lead to significant die-off. So if you took population counts in the spring, that's going to be huge. But there's infanticide, there's natural causes of death. The population usually wanes, and whether it's a drought year or a rainy season, and if they're exposed to sylvatic, the plague and all of that with fleas, all of environmental stuff really factors into that too. So, but there are formulas for if you have burrow counts and how active they are. There are formulas where you can estimate number of dogs too. Yeah.
I would think at some point, is the colony bigger than it was last year at this time, or smaller than it was, or
It'd be
3
great to
times the
track that.
size, that kind of stuff would be I think part of the purpose of the mapping, I would guess. I don't know.
Leslie, is there anything imminent or immediately happening that we should be aware of, or is it still kind of, education and working with Boulder County right now?
I mean, there's nothing that has been planned other than, we're looking into, are there areas where we can put barriers up and then do passive relocation to get the prairie dogs behind that barrier?
Right.
These areas are so broad, in acreage or in length that's a pretty expensive proposition, unfortunately, but there may be areas where it makes sense. So we're still looking into that. The fact that we have had prairie dogs cross McCaslin into Town 15, at some point, we're probably going to have to manage that population.
I wasn't aware of that. So what I was going to ask you that when you said the mapping results, do you have an idea?
I think there's, I don't have them right in front of me, but I think there was roughly 15 boroughs.
Wow.
Yep. The Town 15 side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're not along McCaslin. They're really in the middle of Town 15. And when she was out there, there was only a few that she marked on the map as being active, but I need to sit down with her and really go through how she designated those boroughs and the active ones. She just happened to see, prairie dogs above ground, and that may be what that means. But I need to get a little bit more information from her on that. But there are about 15 boroughs there, and there's like 167 along McCaslin, and I can't remember how many are actually within the trailhead fence area. But, depending on where they are and what barriers we can push them behind with passive relocation, we need to come up with that plan. Now, the Sagamore area is probably the most critical because we have prairie dogs within, 50 feet of people's backyards there. And the county is dedicated to doing something on their property at some point. So we're probably going to have some further discussion on what their plans are, what our plans are, what makes sense along that property line, because it's such a narrow buffer between the county property and the homeowners. It's a really small space in there.
And then if you look on Superior Wildlife, like on the website, and you scroll down, you will go under additional resources and it shows the prairie dog information. So we have one on birds, coyotes, rattlesnakes, and then the prairie dog one was added a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, that was the same thing that we shared like on socials.
Where is that?
Superior Wildlife,
Superior, okay.
and you scroll down.
So Leslie, is there a conceptual timeline for doing something with that Sagamore population?
There's nothing that's been decided, but it, along the lines of what Amber was saying, the recommended time to do any mitigation would be in the fall.
Yeah.
When that population is as low as it can be. And what we may find is some of those boroughs become inactive as that population drops. And then the need to mitigate, obviously drops down as well.
What activity falls under the definition of mitigation? Does that relocate?
Well, it could be the passive relocation. It could be, trapping and relocating, which requires some permitting through CPW. It could be lethal mitigation, and the recommended best practices for that, most humane practices for that, would be, what the go-to process would be.
Thank you, Leslie.
I wish I had a little bit more information, but I would be happy to share this with the whole group, or, if the whole group is not interested in looking at the mapping, I certainly will share it with you, Amber.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, Pari, can you put up that set of maps? So our last meeting, a subcommittee made a recommendation for some trail etiquette and speed limit signage on heavy use trails, and Leslie wisely suggested that we consult with the Parks and Open Space Committee. So I attended their meeting last month and presented the ideas and signage suggestions from this group. And got some good comments back and some agreement on where we might make initial recommendations to staff for signage. So.
Which one do you want me to pull up? This is from the drive, like all of this.
08 trail signage location styles.
This one?
Yes. So I'd like to present this to the group, hopefully get some endorsement and move it on to Leslie's desk. Okay. So this is a summary of pretty much what I just shared. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are recommendations that I made to Park endorsed. Let me explain them to you. I have to back up a little bit so I can orient myself. This is Community Park. This is Coal Creek running through here. The community park is here. This is now largely developed. This is the undertown. We are presently right in here. The trail comes through here. There was a recommendation that we put signage, speed and etiquette signage here. The 2X refers to the recommendation from Park that it be visible in both traveling directions on the trail. And another signage here as folks travel from Louisville under 36 and enter this area, so that this area is signed.
Yeah.
Okay. Next slide. This sign has no labeling. It's actually for a conversation we were going to have on trail counters, but we got delayed. This is the Rock Creek corridor. This is the Colton trailhead up here. This is Colton. This is McCaslin. Trail runs through here. This is the little basketball court. And most of the trail activity starts there. And the next slide, Pari, will show this section right here. Here's the little basketball court. This is Colton, this is Indiana. There's a suggestion that right there at the
Start right there.
entrance or exit to this basketball court area and the Rock Creek drainage, we put bi-directional signage. The park people thought it was very important that we put signage down here where it's so congested by community park, the playground structures and so on. And then if you travel and continue down the Rock Creek corridor, you go under Rock Creek Parkway, thank you, to the bike park
Autry Park.
in here, the pickleball courts right there. This is an area of high congestion, and it was suggested that there be two-way signage somewhere in there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That leads
Everybody
out
with
to
me
the-
so far?
Yep,
Yes.
leads out to the bikeway, so that's going to be.
Yeah. Next slide. And at the park meeting, an unnamed councilwoman suggested that the council has received quite a bit of comment about high-speed bikes coming down this slope across Indiana to Superior Elementary. Right in here.
Right here.
Yeah.
This is downhill considerably. I pedaled this a few times to figure out where the best place was. That
Junction.
unnamed council person suggested in this area, I believe, which seems to make sense as signage to kind of hopefully mitigate or at least educate the kids here and minimize the safety issue as kids crossing this crossway.
Has there ever been any kind of discussion about a dismount zone?
There was some discussion in Park about dismount zone by the community park play structure.
I can see that too. But this, I mean, you have people in cars and
Crosswalk.
people on bikes who are acting like pedestrians, but they're not.
This is such a attractive downhill slope for young kids on bikes that I'm not sure how effective a dismount zone might be. I had suggested rumble strips or paint strips across the bikeway down by the
School, closer to the school.
community park playground as a way of slowing people down.
But definitely signage.
Yeah. Anyway, that is the set of
I know.
locations in these heavily traveled areas that Park was in agreement with us on sign placement. So,
Todd, question for you. So, I mean, I like the idea of where you guys have that circled right now, but it also seems like it would hurt to have one right before the school crossing. Just both have it
Down here?
just because it is so critical and there's so many people and kids.
Stephanie, where was the bench going in?
So
I was confused with it going in here or here.
where kids are flying down here, cutting through this grass.
Yes.
There's like a social trail at this point, and
Trash can
flying
right there.
across this without stopping so cars don't see them coming. So we are putting a bench right here and seeing if that helps. And if that doesn't stop them, we're gonna put some giant decorative boulders to get them to, because this is,
Not good.
if you're coming here and you've got to hook over
Yeah.
like this,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
an
Slow down.
aggressive cut. You really have to slow down to like a crawl. So hopefully that slows people
I think the bench may be more effective in slowing people down than another sign
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, that's great to know.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good idea.
So, can I take this as a endorsement from this group and we'll send this recommendation off to Leslie?
Do we need to vote on it, or?
Do you want to go over the pictures?
Oh, these were the sign, I just shared this with Park. There are a variety of comments on sign design, but you know, in the end, it'll be staff's decision what kind of signage design they want to
I
go
think
with.
these are great because it's easy to read what's going on as you're moving.
Yeah,
That's really
Yes.
critical for these
yeah,
signs.
I think that was clear.
Yeah.
Looks good to me.
Remember that subcommittee ought to make a motion?
I motion we move forward with the approval of the recommended signage locations
As documented.
Okay.
Gordon seconded.
as documented.
Okay.
Gordon seconded your motion.
Sign
Any
seal.
First, I gotta write this down.
Conversation?
You're doing that.
Yeah, you have to document it, Mr. No Man.
Sign seal
Okay.
No,
delivered.
looks good.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed?
Yeah, so do I get to vote?
Yeah.
That's unanimous.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there's something off our list and on our desk, off our desk and on yours, Leslie.
Perfect.
Wildfire mitigation, we may have to,
Yeah, I guess the question is, I mean, I think we want a little bit of discussion on it, so I guess the question is, Leslie, for this next item, is there anything that's gonna happen, like in the next month or 2 months, with regard to wildfire mitigation, like any mowing? I mean, I know the grazing is going on, right, so that's just gonna go on. But anything else, I don't know where she is. Here she is.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see me, but you can hear me.
Because if not, we could put it off and have a better hearty discussion about it, but if there's something that's gonna happen imminently, we probably should slam through something.
Yeah, I think the only thing that we have planned for this fall and winter is going to be grazing. The funding, the FEMA funding that was responsible for a lot of the additional mowing we were doing is pretty much coming to an end. Unless they distribute another allocation to us, that funding string is really running out. Now, we will continue to do the mowing along the fence lines and the beauty bands along the trails, but no big parcels that we have on the books right now. There is a few areas where they can't get into graze because there's too many trees, and it's too small of a parcel, and there's too many trees, and we may recommend a mowing kind of at the very end of the growing season, once the grasses don't have as much moisture in them. And that is the area between McCaslin and Mount Sopris. There's that little section of open space that has a lot of trees in it, and it is getting a little overgrown, and we probably need to get in there, if nothing else, to mow the fence line, if we don't do just a mowing of that whole area. So that would be the one area that I have targeted. To be quite honest, because of the drought, we have had such little growth in our native grasses that there's not a lot of areas that really need to be mowed at all.
Yeah. Okay.
And I guess kind of looking at how do we put together a management plan for wildlife or wildfire mitigation?
Yeah.
I guess my experience is what I thought it was 2 years ago is a lot different than I think it is now. Because we're in the middle of this drought and our conditions have changed significantly. Like I don't know if you remember when we first grazed Harney Listoka, they grazed it 3 times in one summer to keep up. And we've grazed it once and it's hardly grown back. So, the conditions have really, really changed. And so putting together some management practices that allow for that climate change that we're seeing. Like we could have a really wet year, we could have a really dry year. And Christy, I really liked some of your thoughts around, looking at time of year that we do things. I think the recommendation that we look at, the fall for any of that mowing activity, once the grasses lose their moisture, that's typically, when it's recommended, but, doing a better job of protecting the trees from the grazing, those kind of things. But maybe, I don't know, Christy and anybody else who's interested, maybe we just sit down and have a side conversation on how we want that to look.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think that'd be fantastic. And then we can incorporate the learnings from the wildlife impact, the habitat impact pieces, so like you're saying. So yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
That'd be great. We can schedule a time, and anybody else who might be interested in being a part of that, that'd be great.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
That's very helpful. Christy, we'll work on this one offline.
Sure.
To set something up and extend an invitation to everybody else if they'd like to participate in that conversation.
And this is one of the topics that, the Louisville group is interested in batting around next month, so we go through that.
Well, and feel free to use anything in this document, because we got it from sources. One of the sources was theirs.
Yeah.
Because I did read that.
I'd like to know how much they're tapping into that.
Okay, let's do a quick summary on the financial update.
It's just in our planning, this is one of the things we want to make sure we get out to time to look at fund balance. Really, the only fund that we had any discretion in spending and making, at least making recommendations on, is the open space fund balance. And I explained how the email that I sent out. Sorry, you weren't on my cat dance, you wouldn't have read it. But there are 3 funds: the Conservation Trust Fund, that one gets its funding from the lottery dollars. And the dollars are really all spoken for here for what they get spent on. So it isn't anything that we need to make a recommendation on. There's the Open Space Debt Service Fund, and that has a debt issue that is retiring 27, if I'm right, no, in the end of 26, on 27, there won't be any debt service, but that's been paid. And we had recommended getting a second full-time open space ranger to manage all the additional things that we're asking the town to take on. And the timing of it is fortuitous in that that piece of debt service lowers the amount of sales tax that are going, of the open space sales tax that are going into the debt and goes into the open space fund. The open space fund is the one where we do have recommendations that we could look at that special revenue fund as being something that here town, we'd like, if possible, for the council to consider spending money in this area. And one was getting that second ranger. We've asked different things along the way, but just we asked at the time is, okay, this is that time of the year where there's enough information out there. What does it look like the fund balance is going to be? Mm-hmm. And unlike retained earnings in a full accrual situation, fund balance is a pretty decent proxy in our world of what cash is going to be available. So actually spend it for reserves.
So how would you summarize our open space, the discretionary fund this year relative to past years this time?
Well, it had more in, well, as an example, in 2021, it had over $1 million. And at the end of 22, it had $1.5 million. But we made property searches.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are fewer and fewer opportunities to do those.
Right.
So it's appropriate.
Okay.
And we're changing our focus from acquiring property to managing what we've got. Hence the second ranger.
Any questions that or concerns anybody saw in the numbers that Rita shared?
Another spreadsheet.
Okay.
Thank you, Rita.
Okay. Thanks. Let's do a quick roundtable on standings, because I know Gordon, why don't we start with you, Gordon, because you've got actual material for us to
I had a few copies of the note that I sent to you all. So about meeting with the people from Erie and Louisville and Lafayette, and next month is our meeting with the Louisville group. So I reviewed with Mark, guy from Louisville, what topics, are affecting them and affecting us that maybe sharing conversation would be beneficial rather than kind of going through our normal agenda, just like zero in. So the e-bikes issues around, controlling problems and dealing with, Longmont's actually using drones to track.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
And,
So I told my sister that, and she said, well, how do they do that? I go, I don't know.
well, they're not shooting anything.
Okay.
Well,
So I think that's a no-brainer
Yeah,
for
yeah.
group conversation.
Yeah. Fire mitigation was an interesting discussion that we had about, who's doing what, along fence lines and just general management, the topics we were just talking about. I didn't know anything about this ash tree preservation issue. We have a big ash tree in our yard, and we spend money every year, or every other year to keep it there. But Lafayette is actually, Casey was throwing out the idea, what if we, kind of made an arrangement with a company or two or three to service the residents and get a good deal by doing that, And so I don't know if this is a real issue for our meeting. It wasn't a big discussion with Louisville.
It seems like it's a little off topic for open space. We don't plant
Maybe for part of it.
ash trees. It may be a good park conversation.
Well, it's actually, they're trying to figure out in Lafayette, what do we do to help residents who are losing ash trees, and can we do something to prevent the loss of ash trees. So, I mean, came to what I do, just spend money on ash trees. So, the social trail management topic, I described to the guys what Point Strategies was doing for us, and they, have trail management issues too. And Lafayette was talking about strategy. They use strategy to keep people off of trails that they try to close by putting big brush piles on the ones that are closed while it's growing back. Because,
Common.
huh?
I think it's fairly common.
Yeah.
But people still move it. Like I
They
pick up
do.
trash at on a trail up in Nutterland, and every single time we go up there, like all the logs are moved back off.
Yeah, well, that's why they use a big brush pile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to move.
It's hard to move.
Yeah.
But, I mean, whether that's
It may
something
be
we want
worth
to talk
talking about because we're going to address this issue in Coyote Ridge in the years ahead
Yeah.
about how to effectively close.
I would say though, if we're gonna really, like the fire mitigation to me would be
Yeah.
higher on the list. Like I'd
I
like
do
to really
too. I
spend
do
some
too.
time on that.
It's a bigger issue.
Yeah, these are not ranked.
Are there,
Acquisitions, open space acquisitions, that's a much bigger issue for some of the other communities than it is for us now.
yeah,
So, Todd and I were talking at some point, 3 or 4 topics might be a good number to kind of limit things to. A dozen would be a bad idea.
You won't
So-
accomplish anything.
Huh?
You won't accomplish anything if you
No,
have that.
no.
Yeah.
Or you're just in long meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Louisville's
No.
meetings are 4 hours.
so e-bikes, fire mitigation are two clear topics.
Yes.
Is there a,
Third,
The trail
lowest
management?
priority
I
is
think
social trails. and
Would it
social
be,
trail management.
yeah, I mean, I'm almost more interested in talking about where are you with acquisitions? Not because I want to talk about a rubric at all, but just kind of where are you? Are they at a spot where they're shifting like we are, or are they really looking at
Do they
acquisition?
do they have open space funds? I mean,
Oh, I don't know.
where the residents are taxed to have that bucket of money,
Yeah,
like our town does.
Mark said they're going through, their
Oh, okay,
10-year,
fair.
10-year big planning update. And part of that is acquisition. So they're putting a new prioritization together and identifying parcels and coming up with criteria. So maybe we could,
Not that we want to get in the weeds about that.
yeah.
No, but we might
But
be able to
I mean,
leverage each
we
other.
could-
It'd be good to see, yeah.
I wonder what they do. I don't know.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
So I don't know,
and-
I'm kind of,
Depending on where they are with their new process, it might be interesting to.
I mean, I would
share
spend a little
ideas.
time on either of those, or both if we had to.
I'm sorry, what?
I would spend, I agree with prioritizing the first two and then, but I mean, I could spend a little time on either one of those last two.
Yeah.
What do you
Well, I
guys
can
think social?
go back to Mark and say, hey, these are the 4 that
Yeah.
our group sort of thought might be the
And then
top
these are the top
priority.
two.
Yeah.
And I would say,
Yeah,
that,
see,
because they
because
more
I think
important.
they're reviewing them tonight too. So
Okay.
tonight's
Oh,
not
okay.
meeting. Yeah.
Okay, why don't you
I
see?
sent this to
They
them.
What
don't
they
want to
come
meet
down
for
with,
4
but-
hours with us,
What?
right? They don't want to meet for 4 hours with us.
We did that a couple of years ago.
It's 2 hours.
Yeah, and you can tell them we're not interested.
That's really neat
Be
work
out
that
of
you're
your hair.
doing.
Huh?
That's
Yeah.
really neat work that you're doing with them.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes,
And
Thank you.
all 3 of these people are, much more experienced than I am, which is not really saying very much. The guy from Erie joined us in this conversation for the first time. And
That's great.
he's the chair of the Erie group, and he's been involved for 14 years, so he's this Wikipedia of open space stuff. And
But that's a great opportunity for you to learn.
huh?
It's a great opportunity for you to learn.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what, I ask more questions.
If Louisville comes back with a different list that we need to,
Yeah, I'll run it by everybody, I'll just see what,
we can circulate it and so we we're not haggling over topics when we get together.
Where is the meeting?
Yeah, it's in,
Pardon me?
Where is the meeting next month? Is it here?
I believe
No,
it's
it's
here.
in Louisville, I forget which building it
Oh,
is.
it's in
but
Louisville.
I'll
Oh,
send you
is
guys
it
a
our
reminder.
normal date?
They're
Oh,
hosting.
yes, you're right, it was in Louisville.
The library?
I don't remember which building it was, I'll have to check.
I'm trying to remember, that's where we met.
We had a
last
meeting with
time.
the last meeting, I can't remember what building
Okay.
it was.
Yeah.
But it's
It was right
Uh,
after the fire.
It's our.
Raptor
date.
program?
I think
Okay, so the Raptor program, from the 1st of July through the 1st of August, there were 44 observations that were logged into SITSI. So red-tailed hawks, American kestrels, Swainson hawks, great horned owls, Cooper's hawks, and an osprey. And as you would imagine, coming through the spring season, what we've seen is actually a lot of interesting behavior with the fledglings, those that have left the nests and they're doing begging calls, they're learning how to hunt. And so the observations have been phenomenal, even to some of the raptors landing on backyard perches and scaring bunny rabbits. And
Which is very welcome.
But for the fledgling calls, I mean, that's been fun. But it's been a hot summer. And so 44 is a little bit lower than some of our previous months when it comes to observations, but it's just so hot to get out there. So kudos to those volunteers who are out there and making them. But yeah, so we haven't had a raptor walk in 2 months. We'll probably start those back up next month. And then in September 13th, we are going to be sharing a booth with the Wildlife Encouragement at Lafayette's World Migratory Bird Day. And so hopefully we'll leverage a lot of ideas from them on how to make our event even more of a success.
Nice.
Great. Okay.
Of course.
Coyote Ridge, I think we've
Talked a lot about
covered the
that.
ground there. The only thing I'll add is that Connor Curtis, our seasonal ranger, provided us trail counter data for the 3 counters that are in Trail Ridge.
Any surprises?
Of course, recognizing that we're not capturing it all the ways to enter or exit
Right.
Coyote
Lots of
Ridge
entries.
with those 3 counters. There were 4,200 visits between mid-March and early August. Or, excuse me, mid-April and early August.
Wow.
4,200. Conservatively, 4,200 visits, because there are ways to enter that we don't count. But
That's amazing.
personally, that's a
more than
whole lot more
expected.
than I
Yeah,
thought
that's a
were
lot more
using
than I would
Coyote
have thought,
Ridge.
too.
Me
That's
too.
probably half of those were tan.
Yeah,
I don't think I go past
it
the
must
trail
be
counters
Dan
ever.
going in and out of there 5 times a day.
That's the trail counter entrances, I think.
We received a wildlife monitoring update from Tracy. I think everyone saw. Joanne's not here to give us a
Speaking about that
management plan.
underpass that she put in the, that she put in the
Oh.
report about it being flooded. So it's dried out now about 75%, and like the day that you could kind of walk through it without getting really wet, we saw a family of coyotes come through, like yesterday and today. Yeah, so I just posted them. Yeah, they're really cute. Little
It's interesting.
teenagers.
Teenagers and cute, those go together.
Yeah, no.
All right, any other business?
I'll send this fire document that you put together, because I can send this to Louisville if they wanted to look at this ahead of time. So
I don't think it's a problem, yeah.
Good.
Unless it is with anyone else, yeah.
Okay, again, welcome, Dan. Next week, or next month, we're meeting with Louisville, probably in Louisville.
Yeah.
We don't know where,
I will send,
but she will let us know.
I will email everyone.
It's like their town hall or something.
I think
too,
it is, yeah, I just don't, just.
Okay, any other business? Shall we adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second.
Excellent.
Done. Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.